Here's 5 reasons that you should consider using a professional property manager. The first thing that a professional property manager is going to help you with is collecting your rents. Right now, because of the COVID hardships, many landlords that I talk to have tenants that are past due and have had hardships. We all know people that had missed work or were really sick and fell on some hard times. Most landlords know that there are requirements and rules right now that you have to allow those tenants that hardship until, in the state of Oregon, until July of 2021. So if you're unsure of what to do, I recommend that you hire a professional property manager to help deal with your tenants in collecting the rents, or you join a local rental owners association that can give you advice and strategies. Because right now, if you make a mistake, it's extremely costly. The tenant can sue you for damages as well as their attorney costs. So make sure that you know what their rights are for the COVID hardship and hire a professional property manager if you're unsure. The second thing that a professional manager is great at is handling maintenance requests and getting maintenance repair people in there to fix things. One thing that I recommend to my clients is walk through your properties at least once a year with your property manager, or you could go as often as every 6 months, but once a year is ideal. And what you're doing there is you're with the property manager so that if you see something you don't like, you can ask the property manager to fix that or cure that. A lot of times tenants are hesitant to call in maintenance requests because they're afraid that their rent will be increased. And that's not the situation. You can't increase their rent if they call in multiple times asking for maintenance issues. I actually want them to do that because that helps keep my properties in good condition. But a lot of tenants are fearful and they won't call in those maintenance requests. So they'll put a bucket under the kitchen sink, or they'll let a burner go bad and not mention it to the property manager. So when I walk through my units with my professional manager, what I like to say to the tenants to just put them at ease is, we're just here to do our annual inspection. Is the hot water hot? Is the cold water cold? Does the heat work? Is there anything that you need us to take care of? And it just gives the tenant an opportunity to say, oh, I'm glad you asked, one of my burners is out, or the element in the stove in the oven is not working. And it gives your property manager a quick opportunity to write down a checklist of some things that should get taken care of. The third thing that a professional management company is good at is negotiating new rental agreements. So most property managers know what the market rents are and they stay up to date on that. You can also double check that yourself by either going to apartments.com to find out what local market rents are. You could also check on Craigslist, or of course ask a property manager what they think the market rent should be. The property managers are motivated to get as much rent as they can for you because obviously that's going to keep you happy as an owner, but they also get compensated off of the amount of rent that they bring in for that property. So they're going to do their best to find you a good quality tenant that's going to stay there and pay you top dollar in rent. The fourth item that a property manager is good for is contacting residents who have not paid their rent. And this is where they become your best ally because they're going to talk to that tenant and find out, does that tenant need to go on a payment plan? When can the tenant possibly start making payments? Is the tenant aware that there are local and state and federal grant programs that are available right now? There's a property manager in my local area who knew that the state of Oregon's compensation program for landlords was closed recently, and that property manager knew that there were some local charities that were giving away money to tenants who had COVID hardships. So the property manager and his staff contacted all of the tenants that were past due on rent due to COVID hardships and told them, be on the phone tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Here's the phone number. You have to initiate this call in order to qualify for this rent hardship, and it'll pay the rent to the landlord. Talk about a progressive property manager and somebody that's really your best ally, trying to help your tenants and keep your pockets full with cash coming from your property. So a good property manager is worth their weight in gold, because they'll work hard to keep your property full, keep it in good working condition, and they're going to work with those tenants who have those COVID hardships. And remember, if your tenant has a COVID hardship, you cannot harass them, you cannot push them to make payments. Every state is different, but almost every state has passed COVID hardship requirements where tenants have until a certain day to pay back past due rent. So be aware of your local and state laws on what the COVID hardship requirements are. The fifth thing that a professional property manager is great at is dealing with difficult tenants in your apartment complex. So if you own a 20 or a 30 unit apartment complex and you have one tenant that plays loud music all night long, bangs on the wall, has friends over at all hours, and your other tenants are trying to enjoy their unit, go to sleep at a decent hour because they have to get up and go to work the next day or go to school, they don't want to get woken up at 3 or 4 in the morning with music blaring. And right now, those difficult tenants think, oh, there's nothing that the landlord can do. They can't kick me out because all the states are under COVID hardship. That's not true. A professional property manager will know how to deal with those difficult tenants. And here's why it's important to you. Because your good tenants, they're not going to complain. They're just going to move. So when their lease is up, they're going to be out the door, and you're going to get stuck with the bad tenants because you'll get a reputation. You should look your property up on Yelp, on Google. Look for any bad reviews for your property and ask your property manager to address those reviews on Yelp or Google reviews so that your property can show favorable for potential tenants. Because I will tell you, tenants will look up properties and research them to decide whether they want to move to that property. So you do not want a bad review on your property. If there's a bad review, ask your property manager to go on and address it. You have to be really straightforward and just say, I'm sorry you had a really bad experience. We took care of that situation, or here's how we resolved it. Because the tenant that's standing at the curb looking at your property, debating about whether they want to move in, they're measuring 2 or 3 things. Do you care as a landlord? Is your property safe to live in? And how responsive is the property management? If the property management has a bad reputation and there's Google reviews that say, this property manager is not a good manager, they're hard to deal with, they harass me, that is not going to be favorable for your property. So I recommend just type in your property name and your address into Google and see what pops up. And do the same thing in Yelp. It's probably the best thing that you could do for your property. Click on the link down below to sign up for tips and hacks for apartment owners as well as people who are looking to buy their first investment property. I'm Rene Nelson with Pacwest Commercial Real Estate. Have a fantastic day.